Hi there, friends. This is Praying Medic, and I am back with another post from QAnon. I did this thread on Twitter, as I did with the last one. This is going to cover posts on 8chan, The Great Awakening, from Thursday and Friday, January 18th and 19th. And here is a link to the 8chan if you need it. And I will also post a link to this in the YouTube video. So Q begins with this post here. So Q asks a question: are you following the news today? What a big news day. These people are really stupid. This will be the end of the D-Democrat Party. This will be the path forward with public outrage to jail many so-called untouchables. You, the people, have the power. Down she goes. Q. So the big news on Thursday had to do with the disclosure of the 4-page memo that was written, I'm guessing, by Devin Nunes with the House Intelligence Committee. It is definitely coming out of the House Intel Committee. We don't know exactly how that memo was written, but Nunes is the one who's been investigating the weaponization of the NSA intelligence by members of the FBI and DOJ, and we believe that this memo outlines his findings. So that is the big news. On Twitter on Friday, released the memo hashtag, trended for 24 hours. It was a top trending hashtag. It got shadow banned. Users were suspended for using it. It was an all-out battle on Twitter the last 48 hours. And that hashtag is still going around today. So there is a big fight on social media to get this information released. And this is a little bit more about that particular memo. This is a quote from Mark Meadows, who saw the memo. It's troubling, it's shocking, Mark Meadows said. Part of me wishes I didn't read it. I don't want to believe those kinds of things are happening in this country that I love so much. A lot of representatives now have gone and seen this memo in the SCIF, and they are all, well, most of the Republicans have been shocked and dismayed by what they've seen. They are demanding that this memo be declassified and made public. There has been a push forward now. I just saw this on Twitter that they're going to start the process in the House Intelligence Committee of declassifying and making the memo public. That will involve the House Intel Committee has to vote to make it public and declassify it. It then has to go to the White House. The president has to look at it. I would imagine the Office of Legal Affairs has to look at it. The National Security Council will want to look at it. They need to make sure that there are no people or issues in that memo that can't be declassified. So it'll take a little while at the White House for them to look over the memo, make sure there's nothing in there that can't be declassified. Then it'll go back to the House, and Paul Ryan will have to approve it to be declassified and then made public. So it is going to take several weeks, so people just need to be patient. They're working on getting that memo made public. Now, Q suggests that the information in that memo is literally going to destroy the Democrat Party and take down a lot of people who were perceived to be untouchable. Q suggests that we have the power. How do we have the power? Well, that was the public outcry from people on Twitter, and even representatives. A lot of representatives joined the release the memo hashtag. I was surprised to see how many people were supporting this public call to have this memo released. This next post is a little bit longer. What 19 people are currently meeting in a safe room that is heavily guarded? Why did everyone leave their phones and all other electronic devices in room 239? Why does it take the information going public before justice is served? Why is the D party making every effort to block the release of the FISA classified info? Why did Rod Rosenstein plead to Ryan moments ago to prevent the release of this information? Where is AS? 8 fired, X jailed, possible suicides, plus TikTok Q. So let's go through this one part at a time. I suspect the answer to this first question was given to us by Byron York the morning after this was posted by Q. York has been told 115 members of the House have read the Intel Committee memo. When you go into a SCIF to read classified information, all electronic devices are left outside so that you can't take photographs. So I believe that is the answer to the first part of the question. Why does it take information going public before justice can be served? Well, that is because a lot of the people who are going to be implicated in this scandal are heroes to many Americans. And you can't just destroy someone's hero unless you first explain to them and show them the evidence of the evil that they've committed. Otherwise, you're going to have civil war. That's why this is being put out as a public awareness campaign, essentially. We need to make people aware of what has been going on. People have been asleep and they've been fooled for many years, and they need to wake up. Okay, next part of the post. Why are Dems making every effort to block the release of the classified FISA info? All the Republicans on the House Intel Committee voted in favor of releasing the memo to Congress. All of the Dems voted against it. Now, this was a vote to allow other members of Congress to read the memo. All the Dems voted no, all the Republicans voted yes. That strongly suggests that this memo is going to be very damaging for Democrats, and that's probably why they all voted against it. Why did Rod Rosenstein plead with Paul Ryan not to release the memo? I have not yet figured this out perfectly. One possibility could be that there is information in this memo that is going to further incriminate and tarnish the credibility of people in the FBI and DOJ who are on Mueller's investigative team. I strongly suspect that. The information we've received from Lisa Page and Strzok and other people on Mueller's team has been very damaging. And I'm guessing that this memo has more damaging information on people inside Mueller's team. Rosenstein is in charge of Mueller's team, essentially, and that may be a very difficult thing for Rosenstein. If the memo is released and it blows apart Mueller's team, that creates a problem for Rosenstein because he's supposed to be in charge of this. But there's another possibility, and that is that Rosenstein himself is somehow implicated by the information in that memo. We don't know yet. Some people believe Rosenstein is a good guy, that he is on the side of Trump and Sessions. Other people think he is implicated. He has certainly got some dirt on his hands with respect to Uranium One. We don't know a whole lot about his history. I guess we're going to have to wait and see what happens to Rod. But Q is definitely suggesting that Rod has some problems coming up. Where is Adam Schiff? Well, that is a good question. Actually, as I'm recording this, we are in a government shutdown that began about 24 hours ago. Right now, they're still on the floor of the Senate debating and discussing what they're going to do. Q has suggested 8 have or will be fired, a number jailed, and some may choose to end it rather than face the music that is coming their way. The next part of the post is right at the bottom, ++/+ TikTok. From previous posts by Q, we know ++ is a reference to the Rothschilds. Plus is a reference to George Soros. TikTok, time is running out. Background information, 3 plus signs refers to the House of Saud. Most of that has been dealt with already in previous Q posts. And all this is saying is that Rothschilds and Soros, they are running out of time. Next post. This is somewhat self-explanatory. Fight, fight, fight. Demand public disclosure. Be loud. Be heard. This is just the beginning. 2018 will be glorious. Q. So we need to be involved, engaged. We need to fight. We cannot expect other people to do this. We all need to be involved in the discussion and pushing this forward. Next post. The Great Awakening. Q. Next post. The next 7 posts are photographs, and I'm going to show them all and discuss them a little bit. First, we have this photograph, and here is a little bit more information on it. Who are these people? George Soros. We've got David Rockefeller, Bill Gates Sr., Ted Turner, the widow of Walter Annenberg, and Brooke Astor. These people were key financiers of the liberal CIA network. All right, next post. And the point with all of these pictures of these people is that we're getting into who has financed this globalist agenda that has put the people in power who are abusing and corrupting our government. Next photo. This is the Pope. And the backstory on that is this was taken from an article, World Jewish Congress, Attacks on Jews are Anti-Semitism. This article is right here, just posting it here for background information. It's just a discussion about a talk that the Pope gave about anti-Semitism. Next photo, George Soros and Jacob Rothschild. And notice on the left is someone's ear. Whose ear? That would be Barack Obama. Photoshopped picture, but Q is making a connection. Obama and his administration were funded by the Rothschilds and George Soros. You don't have to go a whole lot more into it than that, I don't think. Although you can if you want to. Next photo. Pope is shown kissing the hand of a Holocaust survivor. That photo is from this article on Euronews.com. It's pretty straightforward. He visited Holocaust survivors. You can do your own digging and research on that if you like. Next photo. This is President Obama. This particular photo was taken from this article. And here is a link to that article. This was in New York News and Politics. Money chooses sides. This was about a fundraising event that Barack Obama attended. And I'm going to read just a little bit of this to you. The conference room belonged to George Soros, the billionaire. At the right, you can see Soros right here. After talking to Soros for about an hour about his prospective bid for the White House, Obama walked down the hall and found assembled a dozen of the city's heaviest hitting Democrat fundraisers. The names are here. A lot of power brokers, bankers, investment people who fund Democrats. And Obama would make a bid to get their money to support his campaign. All right, moving along. The next image is an old photo from an article that describes the earliest roots of communism. Here is the picture. It was taken from this article on a website called Useful Stooges. Anna Louise Strong, cheerleader for Mao. The article is about Louise Strong, who spent a lot of time in the Soviet Union, studied communism, and then went to China and talked to Mao about communism. She was an early communism propagandist. All right, moving along. Next picture. Next picture posted by Q is a picture of John McCain, the man whose name we don't say, and George Soros. This picture is from this article on The Blaze. What do you suppose John McCain and George Soros talked about at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland? This article was from 3 years ago. The Davos Forum is a big shindig for billionaire financiers and politicians. They get together, eat, drink, and talk about essentially globalism. They provide the money, they provide the political favor for the things that need to be done. And what is humorous about, I find, about Q posting about the Davos Forum is that next week, Rex Tillerson and President Trump are going to be visiting the Davos Forum. They've already got it on their schedule. Theresa May is going to be there. And I'm going to move to the next slide here. How are the globalist elites going to act when some of their dearest friends don't show up? And when a couple of anti-globalist people like Trump and Tillerson crash the party? I think it's going to be quite amusing to see what's going on there. There is also something I'd like to straighten out here, and that is the Jewish reference to the Holocaust and the Jews. There's an angle here that it's easy to miss, so I'm going to explain that. The globalist agenda, as I understand it, is to achieve world domination through the elimination of sovereign nation states. Globalists want a borderless global community. Theory is that without national borders and without nationalistic pride, there won't be any wars. The long-term goal is to end all war, which is a noble goal. That's done in the short term by inciting wars that gradually undermine nationalism and erase international borders. The end game is to create a global community with a single centralized government, which, strangely enough, is supposed to be overseen by Jews, not religious Jews, but Hebrews. And that is kind of the angle that I think a lot of this is working toward. I have not done all that much research on that, but that is my understanding of the globalist agenda, the big picture scheme. And the wars that we see being supported by the CIA and backed by the globalists is really in Kosovo, in Syria, in Yemen, is an attempt to eradicate international borders and create one big global community. That's their end game. They want to accomplish that in a certain time frame. The next post by Q asks about Rod Rosenstein. Senate count for RR, Senate vote count for Sessions, reconcile. Why was RR chosen to be Assistant Attorney General? Why did Rod Rosenstein draft a letter supporting Comey termination? Why did he use the full weight of his office to attempt to block the release of docs to Congress today? Confused? News unlocks past. These cannot survive. The beginning of the end. Debbie Wasserman Schultz failed to flee. Q. So let me unpack this for you. By the way, Rod Rosenstein was confirmed by a vote of 94-6. Sessions was confirmed by a vote of 52-47 and 1 abstaining. Rosenstein was a shoo-in as Deputy Assistant Attorney General. Sessions was a squeaker. All right. I suspect that the swamp perceived Jeff Sessions to be a formidable enemy if he was going to get into the office of Attorney General. I think a lot of people in the deep state probably saw trouble coming if Sessions got confirmed. That's why a lot of people opposed him. I think they perceived Rosenstein as friendly, which is why he got an almost unanimous approval. So Q asked the question, why did Rod write the letter that terminated Comey? Well, I think the answer is because the swamp would never have accepted it if it came from Sessions. I think what Q is suggesting here is, why did Trump and Sessions pick someone like Rosenstein to be the Assistant Attorney General? Did they know they were going to have to fire Comey? And if Sessions was the one to write the letter, how would it be perceived by the swamp and the deep state? They would never accept it. I think Q is suggesting that they picked Rosenstein because he was perceived as someone who was friendly to them, and they didn't know ahead of time he was going to be the one to write the letter that recommended Comey's termination. And how could they argue if it came from Rod Rosenstein because he's one of their friends? They tried to make the case that Trump actually put Rod Rosenstein up to writing that letter, They try to blame everything on Trump, but it was Rod who actually wrote the letter recommending he be fired. The appointment of Rosenstein was strategic. He oversaw Mueller's investigation, still is. He was trusted. And the interesting thing is, during the Mueller investigation, the key people on Mueller's team, Strzok, Page, also FBI legal counsel James Baker, Andy McCabe, have had bombs dropped on them all along the way. The intelligence community that is friendly to Trump has been dropping their text messages, their pages, leaking information or making information declassified, I should say, and giving it to Congress. See, Trump's intelligence community has the ability to declassify information and give it to Congress. Unlike the leakers in the deep state who are opposing Trump, who have to leak things illegally, Trump's people can do it legally. And they've been doing that to expose the corruption of all these people. Rosenstein has to sit by and watch it all happen. Why did Rod use the weight of his office to try to block the release of the memo yesterday? My guess is that Rosenstein may be compromised. We know that he's got some dirt on his hands from Uranium One. And covering for those people who are about to be exposed. He's in a difficult spot. Trump and Sessions have the upper hand, but Rosenstein is under pressure to try to obstruct them. So it's going to be very interesting to see how everything plays out with Mr. Rosenstein. Confused? Yeah, well, just a little bit. News unlocks past. Dems cannot survive. Beginning of the end. Debbie Wasserman Schultz tried to, but failed to flee. All right. Next post. The storm is coming. Certainly looks that way to me. Q asks, in the next post, Q asks some questions. I'm just going to read this. The tell. How can we listen in, track, and monitor American citizens, the bad actors, not normal people? We hear you. We see you. What must we legally demonstrate in order to gain such warrants? FISA? Do we trust the FISA judges? Military intel? State secrets? Why is this relevant? Who can we trust? Expand your thinking. So this is a question about how are they getting their information on the bad people, the bad actors in the deep state? All right. And Q has posted this about the Rothschilds, about George Soros, about people in the deep state. We hear you, we see you, we know what you're doing, we're monitoring all of your activity. All right. So there's a question. How do they do it? You need probable cause of a crime to get a warrant to do surveillance on American citizens. Do they trust the FISA judges? Maybe, maybe not. Is there another way to do it? What if you use military intel? It doesn't use, see, the civilian world, you'd have to use courts, but in the military, you could access the information through different protocols. Are they using the military intelligence apparatus to spy on these people? Well, that's certainly a possibility. Who can we trust? Q has said in the past they trust their generals more than anyone else. So I strongly suspect it's military intelligence that all this information is coming through. All right, next post. For those of you who missed it, there was a news report on Thursday about a CNBC news crew that was arrested for trying to bring a bomb through the airport in Newark. And yeah, they were arrested. This is the post. And CNBC bomb airport. News credentials failed at security checkpoint. False flag attempt. ISIS on life support. Clowns failed. Q. All right. So what Q is suggesting is that this CNBC news crew was a cover story. These were actually CIA agents who were attempting to set up a false flag, and they got caught because their credentials failed at the security checkpoint. ISIS on life support. ISIS and MS-13 and other members usually often do these false flags They are on life support, they're tapped out, so the CIA had to do it themselves. That is how I am interpreting this post. All right, next post. This is about the President's State of the Union address, which is coming up on January 30th. Timing is everything. State of the Union, Q. I think this is a warning that something is going to be timed to coincide with the State of the Union. Maybe some people taken down, some arrests, I don't know, but there is a key timing issue that we need to look at coming up in 10 days and see how that works out. All right, this next post is rather long. Q is going into emails, private emails. And let me click on this so you can see the entire thing. Okay, Hussein, cabinet, and staff. Who used private email addresses? What was the purpose? Here's a list of initials. Did Hussein use a private email address? At what? Who just resigned from Goog? Why was ES in NK? Asked the question a second time. What private network did ES set up in NK? Asked it a second time. Who else was in NK during this time? What private email address did Hussein use while in office? Why would chairman of Goog travel to NK? Why would NK allow access to ES? Nothing is ever truly erased or deleted. These people are stupid. D-class POTUS, the shot heard around the world. So let's look into this. First of all, let's look at the names, and I would at this time like to just give you a word of warning. If you approach the QAnon posts as if they are a crossword puzzle, that you're merely supposed to solve the puzzle and come up with the right answers, you are going to miss the point. It's not a crossword puzzle. It's not about getting the right answers. It is looking at the bigger picture and asking yourself, how does all this connect to the news, to the stories that are going on? It's not a crossword puzzle. So, having said that, these are some of the names that I think may have been listed. Loretta Lynch, Hillary, James Comey, Clapper, Schumer, Andrew McCabe, John McCain, the person whose name we don't mention, Rosenstein, Susan Rice, JB. JB could be James Baker. It could also be John Brennan. It could also be Joe Biden. We don't know who JB is. It could be all of them. They probably all had private email addresses. Again, the point isn't, we have to have the right name. That's not the point. The point is these people, staff and admin with Obama, had private emails that were used for state work. This is Obama's email address. It was published by WikiLeaks. And if you're interested, here is a long list of emails. Many of them are at barackobama.com, emails that have been used. So Q's question is, why did these people have private emails? Okay, why? Because if you use a government email address, all of your emails are collected and stored, and they're subject to Freedom of Information queries. If you're using a private email address on a private server, it is not subject to FOIA. It's not subject to being picked up and stored by the government. So if you want to evade the law, if you want to evade the NSA and evade FOIA, you use private emails. And Hillary has admitted to using private emails for a long time, since she was in the New York Senate, because she doesn't want the system to be able to grab her emails. The official reason for Eric Schmidt traveling to North Korea, ES, going to NK, was to assist with the release of Ken Bay, a Korean American who had been held captive. Here's a link to the article there. It's on The Guardian if you want to check it out. The official story was he was there to help free a captive, but Q suggests that was a cover story because Q asks the question, why was he really there? Okay. Jerome Corsi has said that he was there to set up a secret communication network between North Korea and President Obama that could be hidden even from the NSA. But of course, as we're learning, they see everything, they know everything, and nothing is ever deleted. So even though they may have set up a private network with private email service and private communications between North Korea and the United States, the NSA found out about it. And you have all the information, you can do whatever you want with it. The question is, who went with Eric Schmidt? That was Bill Richardson, former governor of New Mexico. I'm not exactly sure how he's related. Nothing is ever erased or deleted. These people are stupid. Shot, heard around the world. Okay, what does this mean? Well, they have the information that the Obama administration thought was secret, thought they could delete. Shot, heard around the world is a reference to the gunshot that started the Revolutionary War. If Trump declassifies all of this evidence, these people are going down. They're going to go down anyway, even if he doesn't declassify it. But if he declassifies it, it becomes public knowledge. So moving on, Q is suggesting that the memo is only the beginning. We are at war. We are in a second revolution. And this revolution is going to throw off the tyranny that has come from within our own government, the corruption and the weaponization of the intelligence community. This is the next post from Q. MSM is fake news, propaganda, talking points, 4 a.m., private email addresses, paid contractors, Judgment Day, Q. Q is letting the mainstream media know they are on a short clock. Their propaganda is going to be exposed. Talking points come out at 4 a.m. This is when the mainstream media is sent information and they send out their talking points on how to spin the news cycle for the day. They have private email addresses. The intelligence community has them, knows about the paid contractors. It's all coming down on the mainstream media and they're going to be exposed. By the way, on the same day that the CNBC news crew was arrested, the Newsweek office in New York was stormed by 24 NYPD who came in and took pictures of their servers, computer servers. I think that we're going to see more of this in the future, and I think they're looking at these mainstream news outlets to see if they've got classified information that was leaked to them by people in the intelligence community. So it is going to be a couple of bad news cycles probably for the mainstream media coming up. Q has another post, remember this day. And then another post. This is an exhortation to remember why we're here, what we're doing. Why are we here? Why are we providing you breadcrumbs? Think memo. All right. Why is the memo being released? It's so that the public can know what is going on inside the intelligence community, so that we have information that we can share and we can take appropriate steps. They're building the army, not convinced this is spreading. You, the people, have the power. You, the people, just forgot how to play, because a lot of us have been playing for the Cleveland Browns for too long, and we're used to losing, and no one's ever going to go to jail, and no one's ever going to get arrested, and they're going to keep on doing the same things. That's our mindset. Q is telling us we've forgotten how to play. Together you are strong, apart you are weak. They want you divided. They want race wars. They want class wars. They want religious wars, political wars. They want you divided. It's divide and conquer. That is their strategy. That is the mainstream media and why they push these issues so hard. Learn. For God and country, learn. Let me click on this. Stay strong. Stay together. Fight, fight, fight. This is more important than you imagine. Q. All right. This is a post that came out late by Q after he had posted a lot of other information. Counter narrative went out at 4 a.m. to MSM contractors like clockwork, Russian bots. These people are really stupid. Desperation, fear. When does a bird sing? Nobody is safe. No deals. MSM contractors, goodbye. Fight, fight, fight. Q. All right, so I was on Twitter on Friday when Anyone who was using the hashtag released the memo was accused of being a Russian bot. The message went out that they were to call us Russian bots. The message went out to the mainstream media that there were Russian bots that were pushing this conspiracy about the memo. That was their counter narrative, and it goes out in the morning at 4 a.m. They're desperate. They're afraid. When does a bird sing? In the morning. So Q is warning them they're not safe and there's not going to be any deals. All right, I'm going to give you the next post. This post came out as the president was meeting with Chuck Schumer in the White House. And let me click on this. So the president met with Chuck Schumer to try to avoid the government shutdown. This was Friday night. Working on solutions for security, integrate military. McConnell was there, Ryan was there, Schumer was there. Trump was optimistic at first, and then that's the top tweet. And the bottom tweet, not looking good for a great military or safety and security. Shutdown is coming. This was after about four and a half hours of negotiations, and Chuck Schumer decided to walk away and vote against continuing to fund the government. Q then posted this message here. CS, Chuck Schumer will live in fear from today forward. Thank you for visiting the White House, Q. So that is the end of this particular QAnon message. I hope you found it helpful. If you liked it, you might consider sharing it with your friends on social media. Thanks for tuning in. This is Praying Medic. I'll catch you on the next broadcast.